Welcome back to Gibbo MMA. We are previewing UFC 323. We've had a week off UFC, back into fight week. The last pay-per-view event of the year, Merab Dvalishvili going for his fourth consecutive title defense this year, trying to make history, and he's facing Petr Yan for the second time and defending his belt. Now, this is happening in Las Vegas. We've got a great card to end the year. We've got co-main Alexandre Pantoja defending his flyweight belt against a young up-and-coming Joshua Van. We've got Brandon Moreno versus Taira. Brandon Moreno, also a former flyweight champ, and another former flyweight champ, quite possibly retiring after this fight. Henry Triple C Cejudo takes on Peyton Talbott. A great main card at UFC 323. We've got two former flyweights and on the card, and the current flyweight. So 3 flyweight champs are on this card, and we've also got former light heavyweight champ Jan Blachowicz versus top prospect who's just gone into the rankings, Bogdan Guskov. He's been torching blokes. And let's get into it. We're going to preview this card, particularly the fights, as you know, that I'm real keen on. And thanks, guys. We've hit the 150 mark, 150 subscribers. Not 150K. Not 150K, just 150. Never thought I'd actually start making YouTube videos ever. So the fact to have 150 people click subscribe, I'm like, geez. So thanks guys who have clicked subscribe and who continuously support and watch. And we'll get into some Tom Aspinall has just given us some updates around his eye. He put out a 12-minute video, him walking along the path of a golf course, next to a golf course, breaking it down, his thoughts, and man, he did not mince his words. We'll get into that, and some non-MMA stuff. Some cricket. I'm wearing a Johnny Walker, this is what you call a baggy green type of hat, a cricket hat. And so this is just like a whiskey brand Johnny Walker's version of it. Very dusty, rarely wear it. But let's start with the main event. Merab Dvalishvili, Petr Yan. They fought each other back in 2023, 5-round main event, and Merab 50-45'd him, and it was, I wouldn't say it was competitive, but Merab, that's when he broke the UFC record for most takedown attempts in a fight. So he attempted 49 takedowns, and he got 11 of them, but there wasn't really any control time. And this fight did stay on the feet quite a bit, actually, because Petr Yan did pretty well to just stuff a lot of it. And but Merab just, did well in the striking too. And what I really learnt from this fight, that really came full circle in this first fight they did, was Merab, his best defense is actually his offensive wrestling. His pressure and offensive wrestling is his best defense, because you're like, to beat this guy, why don't people just starch him, knock him out? And people are constantly on the back foot. They can't get the rhythm going. They can't get their combos, their striking going, because they're constantly worried about the takedown the takedown threat and having to defend. They're spending their time, on the back foot, defending a single leg shot by Merab, defending the high crotch, and then trying to get back in the center, back in position. And then by the time they do that, bang, another shot, they're on the defense. And Merab can very much, he is defensively minded in the striking, but he gets a lot more defensive points because they're constantly worried. Like he doesn't have to worry about them knocking him out so much because they're not even trying to knock him out. Because you saw in the Sandhagen fight, Sandhagen, he landed a few shots, but there wasn't any Hail Marys. There wasn't any big throwing the kitchen sink at him. And I think you got to do that in this fight. I think Petr Yan, if we look where he's been coming back to the title, like he's on a 3-fight win streak, all wins via unanimous decision. So Song Yudong, Davison Figueiredo, and Marcus McGee. And he needs to be like the path to victory to beat Merab. I don't know if Petr Yan has it. I think it might just very much go like the first fight. And it's just going to come down to whether Petr Yan has made the improvements, but he showed he defended a lot of takedowns. He really did. And I just don't know if he can keep this fight in a tempo and pace that he wants to keep it. I think it's really much on Merab's terms, the way these fights go, and the way to get him out there. You're not going to beat him by a decision. Umar Nurmagomedov, decision king, couldn't do it. And Petr Yan, he needs to knock Merab out if he wants to win. Let me just check. Yes, we are recording. Because Merab, he beat Sean O'Malley for the title September 24. And then in January of this year, it feels like ages ago, like years ago, this fight happened. His first title defense against Umar Nurmagomedov, and Merab was pretty compromised. He had some lingering injuries, and he went out there and beat him at his own game. Then Sean O'Malley gets one of the most undeserving title rematches of all time. And this is the Merab I want to see. Merab went in there, round 3, submission. They got here a north-south choke over Sean O'Malley. And that's what I want to see Merab do. I want to see him start to get finishes and then again, he fights in October. Only in October. Literally barely 2 months ago. Decision win over Corey Sandhagen. And yeah, I really want to see him. It's hard at this level to get finishes, but just with his style, you just know path to victory-wise for him, easy dubs. He just goes in there, outworks him, and he's not controlling these guys on the ground. He lets them back up. He's just winner via fatigue. And one thing I wanted to mention about Merab was he's got probably one of the most lethal weapons in MMA. And that's not power. That's not speed. That's not skill for skill, technique. The most lethal weapon he has is his cardio. He can just go at 100 miles an hour at 100% for 5 straight rounds, 25 minutes. And he doesn't have to be the most skillful, the most powerful, and the most electric person in there. He's just consistently wearing and tearing on you. And you can see that with all his opponents. Sean O'Malley, a way better striker, way more power knockout artist. Umar, you could say a better wrestler, a better skill for skill wrestler. And Corey Sandhagen, a better, more faster, dynamic striker. So these guys, skill for skill in power and speed were better than him, but none of them had that little weapon. And the most probably important thing is cardio, because fatigue makes a coward of us all. And you've just seen that in his 3 title fights this year. That's what's happened. He's weaponized his cardio in a way to run through people who are more skillful, more powerful, more faster, than him. And he puts it all together in MMA. That's what's so great about Merab, is that he's found a way to use his strengths and put it all together and not worry about the weaknesses. You know, he's a shorter guy. He's a shorter guy than them. Doesn't have knockout power. Merab, you know, he's got 3 wins via TKO, and the last time he's TKO'd someone was Marlon Moraes back in 2021. And if you watch that fight, some refs would have stopped that fight. Merab was on jelly legs. So yeah, I think Petr Yan he's in for another long night. And, you know, let's not forget who Petr Yan is, though. This Russian man, 11-4 in the UFC, a former bantamweight champ. He's 32 years old. And so he beat Jose Aldo for the title back in 2020. And I think he's had one of the most unluckiest, unfortunate runs, losing skids in the UFC. I got to put it up there, top 3, top 5. One of the most unluckiest runs. So he loses the title to Aljamain Sterling in 2021 via the illegal knee. And, you know, big uproar, people were saying Aljamain Sterling was acting or whatever, but so he loses via illegal knee, disqualification. You know, grounded opponent, need him in the face, can't do that, disqualified. Fair enough. Then he fights Corey Sandhagen, 5 rounds? Yep, co-main 5-round fight. He wins that by decision, a great fight. And then he gets a shot at Aljamain Sterling again because Aljo was out for a while. And he loses that by a split decision. And when I watched it, I thought Petr Yan won that fight. Yeah, I thought Petr Yan won that fight. He loses by a split decision against Aljo. And then he goes, so this is his 3-fight losing streak. He loses again by a split decision against Sean O'Malley. I thought, again, Petr Yan won that fight against Sean. I thought he won that. And then he has to fight Merab, and then he loses that by unanimous decision. So, you know, you could call him robbery is a strong word. I don't like to just toss it out there, but that Sterling fight and that O'Malley fight, man, I feel like he got hard done by on the judges' scorecards there. And if he had have, you know, won the rematch with Sterling, this bantamweight division could look a whole lot different. So I feel like he's been one of the most unluckiest guys because I thought he was pretty unbeatable when he was champion. And he was smashing Sterling. He was absolutely dominating him. And he lost because he threw that stupid illegal knee. And, you know, I just think, you know, that Marcus McGee fight, like he's been doing well. Marcus McGee, a high, you know, more of ranked around 10. But he took the fight because he wanted to fight and he wins that. By decision. He has great stance, which is great boxing, great Muay Thai. But yeah, it's just going to be, the biggest question is, can he neutralize the takedown attempts? Can he get Merab on the back foot? And I feel like it might go the same as the first fight. So I got Merab via decision, make history to be the first person to defend their title 4 times in a calendar year. So let me know your thoughts, guys. Comment below on this main event. You know, Petr Yan, I do want him to win. Like, he's an exciting fighter. At this stage, Merab, proof is in the pudding, man. You got to knock him out. If you don't knock him out, you're going to lose by fatigue. All right, co-main event time. Alexandre Alexandre Pantoja takes on the young buck, Joshua Van, in this flyweight championship bout. This is Pantoja's going for his fifth consecutive title defense. And he's been on an absolute tear in this flyweight division. I'm just going to bring up their records. But yeah, like Pantoja, his last fight was against Kai France. He got that round 3 rear naked choke. And he's fought only once this year. He fought in June on the Topuria Oliveira card. And man, he's on back-to-back rear naked choke wins, Alexandre Pantoja. He's an absolute beast. Like he's 14-3 in the UFC. And he has 12 wins via submission. Yeah, and his record's 30-5, 12 wins via submission, 10 by decision, 8 by knockout, and he's never been finished, Pantoja. And if Joshua Van wants to win this, I think he's going to have to try and knock him out. And Pantoja's never been finished. And he is a rear naked choke king. He has 12 wins via sub and 9 of those via rear naked choke. So when he gets your back and that body lock, pack up your bags. The fight's over. He's going to eventually get that rear naked choke. You saw with Kai France, instantly in the first round, he got the body lock. Kai France did really well to defend it, but eventually as they wore into round 3, man, he sunk that shit in, choked him out. And Joshua Van, coming off that Fight of the Year contender fight with Brandon Royval, and it was a really close fight. I think it was 1-1 going into the third. And I think Royval possibly could have been winning that third round. But Joshua Van got the knockdown at the end. So he would have got a 10-8 on the judges' scorecards. And he went from being like ranked number 9, catapulted straight to a number 1 contender spot. And Joshua Van's only 24 years old. 24. Goodness, Pantoja's 35. There's an 11-year age gap we're dealing with here. And Pantoja, if it wasn't for Demetrius Johnson, he quite possibly could be the flyweight GOAT. But Demetrius, 11 straight consecutive title defenses. I don't think anyone's going to beat that. But this is going to be a really tough matchup for Joshua Van. Can he... when the fight goes down to the ground, can he defend himself down there? Can he get back to his feet? Can he defend the submission threat that Pantoja has? And I think he's just too early in his career, skill-wise, to be facing a guy like Pantoja. And if he loses, and I think he will, I think it's just going to be a good experience for him at this stage of your career early on to face one of the best flyweights of all time in the UFC. It's going to make him a lot better fighter long term. So he's going to be obviously in his training camp centered around, I believe so. Focus on your strengths of course, the boxing, the striking, piece him up. But man, you're going to be working on getting back up to your feet, using the cage to get back up to your feet. And if Pantoja, when I believe Pantoja gets Joshua Van's back, defending that rear naked choke. So can Van pull it off? Can he beat Pantoja? Can Van beat Pantoja? I think he's going to have to wear on him with his boxing, and at all costs avoid the takedown. And the way Pantoja gets you down, he just kind of bull rushes you. He's just bull rushing you, and then eventually just fucking runs you over. So Joshua Van will be looking at that, and because he doesn't need your hips to be open to take you down, Pantoja. And I think we might see a few uppercuts from Joshua Van. I think he might see that and try and capitalize on Pantoja rushing in a bit. And he could knock Pantoja out when he comes in like that, because he kind of keeps his head on the center line a bit, Pantoja does. And Joshua Van could see that as an opening to just start throwing the kitchen sink at him. And if he's confident getting back up to his feet, I reckon let it go. And, if he takes you down, at least, you had an opportunity to finish the fight. And if you're confident getting back up, great. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Joshua Van goes up against an absolute top-notch Pantoja. He's been running through people. And Pantoja in that second round against KKF, he was fatigued, man. He does show signs of fatigue, because I think the pace he puts on to get those takedowns, and when he's got you back and all that, I think it wears him out a bit. And in the Kai Kara France fight, in that second round, he wasn't doing much. It was as if he kind of took it off, and then in the third round, he turned it back up again. So, yeah, cardio-wise, how are these guys going to go against each other? Because Joshua Van, he got knocked out by Charles Johnson only last year. He was winning that fight July of last year. He was winning that fight 2 rounds up, and then it just looked like fatigue got to him, and he wasn't able to defend himself. He was on the back foot, and Charles Johnson is one of my favorite flyweights, and if he wasn't 34 years old or something, he'd get much better matchups by the UFC. I think he's been pretty hard done by Charles Energy Johnson. But Charles Johnson knocked him out in the third round with like 2 minutes. In the third round. And because Charles Johnson is great cardio, he keeps coming forward no matter what. Crafty vet sort of stuff. And knocked out Joshua Van, because Van was fatigued. He was fatigued. So if he gets fatigued in this fight, Van, and he's on the ground, I don't think he's going to be able to stop that submission threat. So I got Pantoja winning. Let me know your thoughts on that fight. I'll just see if there's anything else I need to touch on. Very much a nightmare matchup for Joshua Van. Heavy boxer versus a grappler who submits people. Yeah, tough matchup. Now, so we get into the rest of the card, because 2 title fights, the lighter weights, flyweight and the bantamweights. We've got a former flyweight champ, Brandon Moreno versus Cejudo Taira. This is a great matchup. I believe the winner of this will probably fight for the title next. Brandon Moreno ranked number 2. Cejudo Taira ranked number 5. And Brandon Royval's fighting the weekend after. Who's he fighting against? To end the year, Brandon Royval's fighting, because he's a top 5 flyweight. Where the fuck is it? Yeah, he's fighting Manuel Cap. So maybe the winner of those 2 guys could fight for the title. But Brandon Moreno, former flyweight champ. He had some good wars with Davis and Figueiredo. And Cejudo Taira, the Japanese, 17-1. He could be a tough matchup for Pantoja. So I think if he wins this fight against Moreno, a former champ, I think he gets the title fight next, just being a fresh matchup. But he's coming off that win against Hun Song Park, round 2, face crank. He was originally supposed to fight Amir Albazi, but he was injured. He lost by a split decision to Brandon Royval. I'm just remembering that now. There were some gaps in his game there, but I think he's improved, and Brandon Moreno will be a great test for him. But that was his first loss in his career, was against Brandon Royval. And Brandon Moreno, the Lego man, what's he been up to these days? He kind of went off a bit, had a break, after all those title fights he'd been through. The Smiling Assassin. So he's coming off Amir Albazi and Steve Erceg decision wins. But yeah, he had a pretty fun run back in starting the COVID era. He drew against Davison Figueiredo, and then he beat Davison Figueiredo for the title via submission. And then he lost to Davison Figueiredo. And then he won an interim belt against Kai Kara France. And then lost again. So he's fought Davison Figueiredo 4 times. And then he lost split decision to Pantoja. And then splitty again via Brandon Royval. And that's a big thing with Brandon Moreno. He loses decisions. It's coming back to me now. He loses decisions. Like, his fight IQ around the judges' scorecards and the feel of a fight is pretty bad, because he's never been finished and he's lost 8 fights by decision. And he's lost, he's got a draw in there, but he's 2 losses via split decision in the UFC. So I think I got Taira winning this fight. I think he can beat Brandon Moreno and get the title shot next. And then the next fight, Henry Cejudo versus Peyton Talbott. Bit of a weird one. You got an unranked Peyton Talbott versus Triple C Henry Cejudo. Double champ, 2-division champ at flyweight and bantamweight. He defeated Demetrius Johnson to get the flyweight belt after he did lose to him. He's a 2008 Beijing Olympic freestyling gold medalist, and this is why he gets the Triple C nickname. One of the greatest combat athletes of all time, an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling, and a 2-division UFC champion. And this, very much talks, and from listening to his podcast, could be his retirement fight. And he's versing an unranked Peyton Talbott. And he signed the contract and agreed to the fight. And, I don't think this is going to be his last fight. Henry Cejudo, he's currently ranked 10. And coming off that controversial loss to Song Yadong earlier this year where he got fouled. He got fouled and then he continued on. And then he's like, I can't continue because my eye's fucked. And then he lost via technical decision. So he got really hard done by in his last loss to Song Yadong. But for legacy-wise and a bit of respect, giving him Peyton Talbott just doesn't sit well with me. But Henry's a smart guy. And he wouldn't take this fight unless 100% he knows he's going to win. And everyone knows Peyton Talbott still developing. He was a top prospect and starching blokes. And then he got fraud checked by Barcelos, where he just got controlled on the ground. If you're a gold medalist Olympic wrestler, you're saying that and you're going, I'm just going to take this guy and just control him down. And I think that's what Henry Cejudo is going to do. Only thing I worry about is the speed of Peyton Talbott against an older Henry Cejudo. Cejudo is going to be careful just with the speed that Peyton Talbott possesses and, not get caught. Because Peyton Talbott had a good decision win over Felipe Lima. He was able, you could see he worked on his takedown defense. But he ain't no wrestler. He ain't no he's not coming up against, he's now coming up against an Olympic gold wrestler. But Henry Cejudo's 38, man. He's 38. In his prime, Cejudo, man, he was so quick and agile and, getting those takedowns. He loves that inside trip when he gets that takedown, he kind of gets the high sort of clinch up around. He gets those like underhooks and he just digs that foot in between your legs and then just wraps it around, gets that inside trip. I feel like that's like his signature, and we'll probably see it in this fight, I reckon. But he's 38 years old, Henry Cejudo. Peyton Talbott, 27. But if this is Henry Cejudo's last fight, man, like, this guy's achieved so much in the UFC, in combat sports. You know, he's the king of cringe. But he put on that persona because they were going to get rid of the flyweight division. He's saved the flyweight division. He has a good podcast with Kamaru Usman, Pound for Pound. I listened to that, and it's a really good podcast. And like, he's a cool dude, man. Yeah, and like, he had to sell fights and he had to put on a bit of a character. And like, people like just see that and just think, oh, that's the real Henry, but that's not the real. That's a part of Henry. But nah, like, he deserves a lot more respect. And if it's his last fight, man, like, Henry, I wish you all the best. I hope you get the win here and get a good send off. Because he's retired before Henry, and you could say it's probably one of the, not the worst, I wouldn't say worst, but just not the smartest career moves for a athlete in their prime. Because he fought Dominic Cruz during COVID, defended his belt at bantamweight, defended against Dominic Cruz, and then he just retired. And no one was expecting it. And this is back in 2020 of May. Yeah, and he just retired. And everyone was like, okay, see ya. Bye, Henry. Retired in the prime of his career and then sat out for 3 years. Henry sat out for 3 years, watched on by, and, you know, I don't know what's going on with him, but I think the biggest reason was, I mean, he's been wrestling to, you know, all that stuff since a kid, and like, his whole life up until the age of, you know, 33 or whatever, has just been competitive sports, cutting weight. Like, just needed a break, and he's looked to have started a family and all that. So I do understand the retirement. Like, it just very much burnout was on the cusp by the looks of it, and he retired. He just had to take a break, and he was able to then focus on things outside of just fighting, and he set himself up pretty well for post-fight career. But in that time, that's a long time in MMA, in sports. I feel like he missed out on building his legacy in the UFC and wrapping up title defenses, and that's when the UFC really exploded to mainstream during COVID. And then he came back in 2023, like, oh, I'm 2-division champ and all that. Everyone's like, all the new fans just would have been like, who's this guy? And then he goes on a 3-fight losing streak. So ever since he's come back, he actually hasn't won since coming out of retirement. Lost split decision to Aljamain de Sterling. A very tough fight to come back as well too. This is prime Aljo, and he comes back and fights a prime Aljo after being 3 years out. Loses via split decision, and then he has to fight Merab. Loses that via decision, and then he gets that shitty fight with Song Yadong. So yeah, just been a rough sort of, you know, few years for Cejudo. So I'm pretty keen to see him get the win because, like, he's a really smart fighter. But the retirement, I feel like I've seen him sort of like talk about it, saying like, yeah, like, just probably not the best thing to have done, but it is what it is. So it is what it is. But I think he shouldn't have retired. I felt like he should have just, I don't know, it's hard. You can't just say, no, I'm not going to fight. So I feel like maybe he said he had to retire so the UFC just wouldn't pester him all the time and holding up the division. But it just seemed like he just needed a year off. Just a year off, not 3. But I'd like to, talk to Henry about it more. Hindsight's 2020. But in that time, it was during COVID, stressful times, and I feel like he's exerted himself so much. He just needed a break because, his run to the title, he lost to Demetrius Johnson and then he lost to Joseph Benavidez. So, he was still transitioning to wrestling, to MMA, and he's fighting really tough flyweights and had a bit of weight issues. And then, he went on to beat Demetrius via split decision for the title. And then that infamous fight against TJ Dillashaw, where TJ was cut down to a fucking stick, knocked him out in the first 30 seconds. And that's when Cejudo was really starting to all right, this is Cejudo, man. This is the guy. And then he moves up to bantamweight and becomes a 2-division champ, beats Marlon Moraes, round 3, ground and pound. And then beats one of the greatest bantamweights, Dominic Cruz. And it's all right, this is where it starts. This is where his run really starts in the UFC and becomes a household name. And then, he retired. So, I had to give, 10 minutes to Henry Cejudo or whatever I just spent to pay sort of respects. This fight doesn't reflect the caliber of fighter like this matchup. So let's go Henry Vice decision. And as we get to the rest of the card, Jan Blachowicz, former light heavyweight champ, defending his ranking spot against Bogdan Guskov. This is going to be a fun fight. I think Jan can get this done. He's coming off that tough loss on the judges' scorecards to Carlos Orberg at UFC London, and he's on a 2-fight losing streak, and then he lost by a split decision to Alex Pereira back in 2023, and then that crazy draw in 2022 against Ankalaev. So he hasn't won a fight since 2022, and this up and coming, Bogdan Guskov is a fucking been laying people out. I think he can catch him and beat him by decision, just outclass him. Bogdan, he's 4-1 in the UFC. He's got the Gilly over Billy, and then he's got the round 1 knockout over Krylov. Ryan Spaney's knocked out. Yeah, he's been finishing blokes. He's 33 years old, Bogdan, but, young. I think he's pushing 40. Blachowicz, the Polish power. Yeah, he's 42 years old. And, he did not look 42 in there against Carlos Orberg. So, one last ride. I mean, I like Bogdan. I think, he's one of the top up-and-coming light heavyweight guys. But I think he just might get out-skilled here by Jan Blachowicz. Because people forget, man. Jan Blachowicz is such a technical striker. You saw what he did to Israel Adesanya. Yeah, he laid on him a bit. But in the striking, he had Adesanya, second-guessing himself a bit. But yeah, that's the main card, guys. The main card. And I'll quickly skim through the prelims like I do. Just some fun fights. But yeah, Grant Dawson, Manuel Torres, a great lightweight matchup. Terrence McKinney, Chris Duncan is going to be fun again. Duncan coming off that fight of the night win over Matush Rebecki. And then, the Macy Barber, Kareem Silva, Faziem versus Nazim Sadikov. That'll be a fun fight with Sadikov. Marvin Vettori, Bruno Ferreira. that's going to be a fun middleweight scrap. Edson Barboza, Jalen Turner making his return from a retirement. He essentially retired, and then he's like, fuck. It sounds like, when did Jalen Turner last fight? He fought Ignacio Bahamondes March of this year, and then he says, I'm taking a break. And literally didn't even take, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. Took 9 months off. I guess you could call that a break, but generally speaking, that's just really the break you take between fights, unless you're Merab. So the biggest thing is probably like the money ain't coming in like that fight paycheck. So, I mean, money talks, and rent's due by the looks of it. So he's returning against Edson Barboza, looks to have moved back up to lightweight. He got down as far as bantamweight, Barboza, so hasn't he been around? But yeah, and then it's just some other guys on there. Don't need to get down into that too much, but yeah, a fun UFC 323 card on paper. A lot of lighter weight fights on the main card. So yeah, very much looking forward to it. This is earliest preview I've done. This is a Monday. Usually I record this on like a Wednesday or Thursday. And we'll get into some MMA news. Tom Aspinall comes out and posts a YouTube video about his eye poke fiasco, and he posted all of the medical reports from his doctor's appointments around the findings and summaries and the diagnosis of his eye. It was like a Brown's eye syndrome or something. So he's still going through it, and so it's a very serious injury we're dealing with, and by the looks of it, we might not even see him next year fight. Who knows? Because it's pretty bad. Double eye poke, especially his right eye. And he talked about, and he didn't mince his words, he got asked about Cyril Gane, and he thinks, Cyril Gane's a cheat. He's dirty. He did it on purpose. And they showed clips of the round one. It was like 7 or 8 times Cyril Gane has his fingers extended in and around his face. So yeah, proof's in the pudding. And it just sucks that Tom Aspinall's getting the blame for all this. It's like he's the one that got fucking eye gouged, and his eyeballs got used as if you were going temp and bowl and shoving your fingers in there. And Cyril Gane just fucking bowled it down into the gutter. And yeah, so I'm really much with Tom Aspinall on this. Like, I picked Cyril Gane to win it, but we're past that now. It's, we're dealing with the guy's health. He can't fight, so he can't get an income. Obviously sponsorships, but fighting's his bread and butter, and hasn't been able to train or anything since. And then wasn't too happy with the way Dana was saying in the post-fight presser, saying like, oh, Aspinall chose not to continue and all that. And it's like, well, literally, there was no other choice. That was the only choice to do. So yeah, go watch it, get a bit of perspective, and yes, things are going to be done around these fouls, man. But it was a real good context he gave us, and I don't know if you've ever been eye poked. I've been eye poked before playing a basketball game, competition basketball, and yeah, I had to get subbed off straight away. I instantly was like, fuck, got subbed off straight away and didn't play the rest of the game. And I just felt like I felt sick, like it does to you. Like, yeah, and for like a week or something, just like the bruising and like, the pain around the eye lasted for like at least a week. And like, I got the vision back. I was lucky. Got the vision back, but just felt sick because of like, the eye into the brain, and just felt like oozy and shit from it. So, yeah, eye pokes fucking suck. And it's got to be consequences. Now, as you know, UFC 324, 325 fights been announced we got. And yeah, a lot of backlash, guys. Go watch my reaction to it. I posted in the last video. You can get my thoughts. But since, over the weekend, yeah, a lot of backlash around the positioning of the fights. The matchups are great. They all make sense. All of these fights make sense, except for the Volk Lopez one. Doesn't make sense. Biggest issue was around an interim title fight being the main event, and then you got Nunes Harrison as co-main. As far as, black and white meritocracy rankings, undisputed interim, and positioning of those fights on a card, yeah, it doesn't make sense. But what makes sense is the business and money side of these cards. And if you're starting off a deal, a $7 billion deal, and you're showcasing it to the world on, they're not paying for these. They don't have to do pay-per-view. So there's going to be a lot of people watching this. And you got to have your main event to end in fireworks. And that's what Justin Gaethje brings, the highlight. And this fight with Paddy Pimblett will do that. So I do understand it. And because we saw Khamzat Chimaev, DDP. You don't want your fight card to end like that when you're starting off a new deal. Big names and all makes sense. But you got a lot of new casuals coming in that are going to be exposed to this sport. And if you want to get them to follow your sport, you got to end it with a bang. You don't want to be ending it with some fucking missionary. You got to end it with some fucking ground and pound type fucking holy shit orgasmic stuff. You can't just be ending in some slow missionary like we saw with the Islam JDM. You don't want to be showcasing that to all these new people around the world, especially in the big US market. And that's, at the end, this is a fight game. Money comes first. And this is exactly what that is. And then the Volk Lopez 2 fight coming into the Australian market, we still have to pay pay-per-view for this. This is what really bums me out about this, is like, we've already seen this fight. We've already bought this fight before. Now you're making us buy the fight again. So that's what shits me about this fight. Mozart Lorraine, just give him someone new. That's a new experience we want to purchase. We're now purchasing an experience, and especially in fights that we've already seen. We don't want to be purchasing the same thing. Yes, the fight might not go the same, but it's like, there's not much else to talk about, really, for this fight. It's like, forget the promo shit, just fucking fight already. Get him to fight fucking this weekend. Get out of the way and give Volk Mozart Evliov. Like, the Australians have to fucking pay crazy pay-per-view money to watch this fight again, and we don't want to see this fight. This isn't a Diego Lopez thing. This is on the UFC thing. But Lopez, Brazilian, and there's going to be, they want to launch, and this is a weekend after, so they need a big popularity guy. And huge backlash on the Lopez Volk fight. And Volk even came out with a YouTube video. He wanted Lorraine in December. He wanted Movza. And then he was like, well, I guess that wasn't happening. So he's like, well, I'll wait so he can fight in his hometown for the first time in Sydney. So yeah, a lot of backlash on these fights. But I understand why they've made it to start this new deal with Paramount. So yeah. And some non-MMA stuff. We've got cricket starting this Thursday in Brisbane, an hour up the road from me, a day-night test. So usually a test match starts at like 9 a.m. It's like a 9 to 5 sort of thing. But a day-night test starts at about 12 or 1 p.m. local time and then finishes around 8:30 p.m. local time. And these only came in a few years ago, these day-night tests. And instead of using the red ball, it's a pink ball. And it changes the game up a bit, especially when you're playing at nighttime. There's a lot of things that go into cricket, the way the ball swings and moves and bounces and moisture and humidity. So we got this weekend again against the English, the Ashes, game 2. So looking forward to that. And we had the TikTok Awards last week. I remember seeing this maybe last year, didn't think much of it. And then because I'm now on TikTok and use it to put out my content, I just put shorts and reels and skits, some skits on TikTok. So pretty much what you're seeing, sometimes I'll chop this up and put it on TikTok. Gibbo MMA, go follow if you want to doom scroll on TikTok. If not, that's all good. So yeah, it's all the because I'm on TikTok and just research purposes, and to produce content, I was aware of it. And 2 things. So the person who won the best video of the year was Lee Halton, I think her name is. Very pretty girl and all. And all the video is just her holding her phone and showing her face with the Bob Marley song on it. And it's like, man, very talented, I guess. I mean, what is this, Steven Spielberg? So yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts about TikTok awards? I like some of the areas around like best like comedy. People do comedy and stuff because like that takes sometimes a lot of thought. If you act in a bit, I'm like, yeah, I can appreciate that as an award. Or like fitness people or sport and fitness type stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's still kind of new, and it'll be interesting to see in 10 years' time these kind of awards for TikTok around for like content creators because it's a new thing. But yeah, I just thought it was funny, like the best video because it's got like 1 billion views, and yeah, it's just I don't know if there's no filter, but a lot of makeup on, obviously an attractive girl, just holding the phone in the face, and you just got a lot of gooners watching and liking it, and that gets the best video. And I was like, there's just no effort at all into that. Like it doesn't take much to do it. The biggest thing is just having the looks to do it. But hey, I think there's an old story about Picasso, the pitch, artist or whatever, and he's at a cafe, and this lady sees him drawing something for like 10 minutes or so, and then sees it, and then goes, "Wow, that's great. Like, how much will that cost?" And he just says some outrageous number, and she's like, "Well, it only took you 10 minutes to do it." And he's like, "Well, it took me 30 years, or whatever, how the story goes. 30 years or whatever, because of the experience and time he spent perfecting his craft that he makes it look so simple." So am I comparing this Leah girl with Picasso with one of the most viewed videos on TikTok of all time because it was so effortless? Maybe she's, I guess, spent all those years to look good to be able to do this. I don't know. I'm trying to make up some logical reasoning around some of these awards, and yeah, I guess you're just subject to an algorithm, I guess. But yeah, you might see me there. I don't think you will. But the next thing about these awards was the next few days, every time I'd go on TikTok to maybe see some MMA stuff, was So I went to the TikTok awards and this was my experience. And I got to say, just fucking, that's all I saw. And I was like, God, how could you be around? I mean, documenting as part of a creator is what it is, but all I saw was people just talking shit about it, these awards. So make that what you will. Maybe we'll get Gibbo MMA at the awards and we'll rock up in some MMA fight gear or some thongs or something, or maybe we'll go full black tie. But yeah, TikTok awards, something new that's coming about. Yeah, it's a new industry, and overall, I think it's a good thing. But again, a lot of people have done a whole lot of nothing and think they should be treated like an Oscar-winning actor. So that's my final thoughts on that. Final thoughts on UFC 323. Merab gets the win. Pantoja gets the win. And still looking forward to these fights. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Comment below. Try and get another video out this week. But yeah, that's another episode done. An early preview. And yeah, catch you later, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week.